Welcome everybody to our channel once again. Today, as always, we're talking to someone who cannot get away from the water. So, hey. And most important, sail fast. Welcome back. Today, as I mentioned, I have someone who cannot get away from the water for so many years. And I also want to make a quick thanks to our to the rest of the team, to Julienne, Malay, Rogelio, Robert. We all put this together one way or another, and it's been a fun project all along. So today we're talking to Simon Green. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Alberto. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi.
Good. So Simon and I, we've been talking on social media for a few months, right? Until we finally were able to pin down a date. So welcome to our channel.
Thank you.
Simon, let's jump right into it. Who is Simon Green? How long have you been sailing? Where did you grow up? Give us some background.
Well, I started, and in fact, there was a picture I sent you. When I was 5 years old, I lived on Hayling Island in Hampshire, which is quite a well-known place for sailing in the UK. And at age 5, I was put in an Optimist on my own, pushed off from the beach, and told to get on with it. Now, I think that's the best way to learn sailing. I'm not sure that it's strictly legal anymore. But that's the way that I learned. I remember it being initially terrifying, and after that, just heaps and heaps of fun. Now
so you were one of these little guys here?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure one of those. I think that is from that day. Now I had my very first Optimist, which my mum bought me, was in the sail. I remember the sail number was 85, and that was the last one. So it was when I was quite young still, and it was made of mahogany. And it was literally like a cast iron Optimist.
I'm sure it weighed a ton.
It took about 6 people to lift it up. My mum always kept telling me, at one time, this was owned by the national champion. So it's a great boat.
This is really slow.
It was incredibly slow. But it was, and then the last one I had, which is that picture, I think the sail number was 1454. And that was the last one I had. Again, they were all wooden at that point because they weren't, the plastic ones didn't really exist. They weren't competitive. And that was the last one I had. And I sailed that boat in European regattas. I was in a British team that went to Denmark, sailed lots of national championships. And I think that is at Rutland Water, which was the last national championships I did in the Optimist.
We were talking right before we went live, how cool it is, right, to have images from our childhood sailing, especially this far back when we really had no mind to keep records.
Yeah.
Right? So this is very, very cool. So so what happened after this? National championships.
So basically, I've got an older brother, and Nick and I both sailed Optimist, and were very competitive. So I mean, basically, we didn't really sail outside of racing, almost straight from the beginning. It was always all about racing, always very competitive. And from there was a British national youth squad that was basically for the 2 420s. So we bought a 420 and raced that for a while. And that was quite a lot of fun. We used to do a lot of training. I distinctly remember very cold winter regattas in places like. Yeah, that was I won one of the days at the Rutland Nationals in the Optimist. That was I think it's the first day. That was the City of Plymouth Trophy, and it was basically because at nearly 15, I was easily the heaviest, and it was a howling gale, and then I was deeply disappointed on day 2 when they cancelled the racing because it was too windy, and I was like, "Come on, guys!
This is my time."
So I think I ended up about 5th overall, which is not bad. I was quite pleased with that. Yeah. Anyway, so sailed a 420, and then after that, I joined the Royal Navy, and my brother went off to university, I did a little bit of sailing in the Royal Navy, and there's some bits of the Royal Naval sailing team. I sailed on their S1.E9 ocean racing yacht a little bit, which was really good fun. And then after that, I completely stopped sailing for a while. Moved up to London.
You told me, right?
Had a family, had a business that we used to have. Well, I designed menswear. So we had a business that was retail in London, and as our children were growing up, and got very involved with all of that. And then we were going through a fairly quiet patch, and my wife said to me, you know what? You should go back to sailing. Obviously, I was not busy enough or something like that. We found a project on the Thames called the it's in Deptford, and basically it's a charity project for taking disabled adults and kids that have been excluded from school sailing. And so I went in there because I'd worked as a sailing instructor as well when I was younger. I went along there, and I think that is one of the great examples of just how inclusive and what a wonderful thing sailing can be. Because we had guys in boats and ladies who were, almost, you had to lift them into the boat. They couldn't walk, but to be out in a boat on water was exhilarating. And then you had some of these kids who have been permanently excluded from school, had all kinds of behaviours, stick them in a boat. And it's a different story. And we had just a brilliant time sailing up and down the river from Deptford. I did at that point, I've got 3 children. The youngest one at the time, Oliver, was about 12, 13. Hadn't done any sailing. So I said, I'm doing this on a Wednesday night. You're coming too. Initially, he looked at me. He was like, not sure. All right, Dad. And then so he said, okay, but I insisted that whenever we went sailing, he wasn't in the boat because I thought, you're not going to listen. You're not going to learn what you're like, 12-year-old. And so he went, and then we, after we'd been there for a few months, the owner of the sailing project, the Hoy Centre, said, Simon, we're entering some boats in the London Regatta. Do you want to race? And I went, absolutely. I'll do this one with Oliver. And we were sailing a thing called a laser Stratos. So it's quite stable. It's got a laser keel boat, which is great for disabled adults because they're very stable. So we sailed down to the Greenwich Yacht Club, which is by the Thames Barrier. So, and they choose it on a day when the barrier's closed, so there's no tide. Right. But it's really quite big. And there's something like 200 odd boats.
Oh, wow.
From all the sailing clubs on the river, and completely paraplegic sailors who are, lying down and controlling the boat with their kind of mouths and instruments and things, to, able-bodied people. Like a massive mixture. It was great fun. So we did things like that.
That's an amazing story. If I may interrupt you a bit, to make sailing such an inclusive sport, right, and share it, right, with folks who would naturally not be participating, right. I mean, you and I will probably enjoy very much the freedom of the wind and the waves and the activity, and to be able to share that with somebody who naturally not end up in the water, I think it must be very fulfilling.
Oh, it was amazing. It was really cool. I mean, it's an amazing project. The funny thing about it, though, and this is not a bragging thing, but Oliver and I entered the regatta and we won.
Oh wow, that's a bonus.
Ever since then, there's 2 things that happened. I've got Oliver's older brother. He said, "Dad, you beat the disabled sailors. So what?"
How good are you, Dad?
Not like that. And then my other son, Oliver, who was in the boat, said, "Well, I've done sailing now. I've raced. I won. I'd never have to do that again." So anyway, we've got them sort of tentatively have done a bit more, but it was good fun, and it was what I found was that getting into a boat on a start line, it was like everything coming flooding back, and literally you go, oh my God, I'm seriously competitive. I've forgotten how much. And I remember saying to Oliver in the boat, look, just stay exactly where you are. It's quite light wind. Don't move. Do exactly what I tell you. So that was good fun. Anyway, so after that, our retail business, because of the advent of online and everything else, and our children growing up, we decided we could move out of London and just basically run up online, which we did. 2014, we moved down to Deal on the Kent coast. So we're almost as far east as you can be in the south of England.
Okay.
Right on the corner. And it's a great town, great community, and has a fantastic sailing club. So I was thinking about, what did I want to go sailing? Part of the reason I wanted to live on the sea again was to go back to sailing regularly. And so, we were looking at houses, and I was Googling the sailing club. We were walking at the house going, how far is it? What's the mix of boats?
Is it driving distance? Okay, then it's a good property.
Yeah, actually, walking distance, even better. So when we got down here, I was thinking about what to get, and it was obviously going to be single-handed because I didn't want to have to, rely on somebody that I didn't know. And I know my wife's idea of sailing is martinis and on the deck of a boat somewhere in the Med. That's about it.
That's good enough.
So, what is the one single-handed dinghy that is almost the most iconic of them all? And it was the one that was iconic when I was a child. And I always remember back in the Optimus days being given as a prize Paul Elfstrom's book, and seeing the picture on the cover of him sailing a fin, and just thought, that's the boat for me. I'll get a fin. And so that's what I did. And so the first thing, so I bought a 2002 Devotti. So it's made in England. It's exactly the same as the boat that Ben Ainsley had, Rita. It's the same mould,
Yeah.
and built at pretty much the similar sort of time. And they're amazingly well built dinghies. But so he turned up at the local sailing club, down the sailing club in Kent, and so one of the old chaps was on the beach, and I was watching the racing. He walked over and said, "So, you're a sailor? You joined, have you?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, yeah." He said, "What do you sail?" And I said, "Oh, I've got a fin. It's on its way. It's just being remeasured and having a few bits done to it." I went, "Oh, so you're one of those Olympic types then, are you?" No, I think I'm way past that at my age. But, so he said, "You sail them a lot?" I said, "Well, actual fact, I've only ever seen them in pictures. So I've never actually seen a real one."
Right.
And he went, "Well, I'll make sure we're all on the beach to watch that first." And I thought, now I know I'm in the right club. Nobody's going to take anybody too seriously.
Right.
There's no kind of, sort of pretension or any of that nonsense. It's all about just getting on with it.
Right.
And the other great thing about the thing that I was really attracting me to is the masters class and the masters sailing.
Right.
So, that picture is the start of. There's a regatta in East Kent called the Man of Kent Regatta. It happens every year at a different sailing club around the Kent coast, and that one was in Hythe. And it was a really stiff breeze, but it was fantastic racing.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit under the kind of really truly competitive weight for a fin, at only about 87, 88 kilos. Whereas most of the guys are kind of like 95 to 100.
Really?
And quite a bit taller. But, to me, it's the aesthetic of it. There's no more beautiful single-handed dinghy. It's a truly remarkable piece of.
It's a beautiful boat, I have to say. One of my early coaches, he was a fin sailor,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, we were too small back then, but we were mesmerized, right, by all the equipment and the size of it, and looked up to him, a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's an amazing boat. I so partly it was the attraction of being able to sail in a competitive sort of open meeting circuit in the UK, but also the fact that there's a World Masters event every year, or at least notwithstanding COVID.
Right.
And they're just amazing events. So I had the boat for a couple of months. I went to my first open meeting on Hayling Island. And, you're on the start line with Giles Scott and literally the best sailors in the world. And there is no other sport that you could do that. Basically, I wasn't actually on the start line at the same time. And I wasn't, we're disappearing in the distance pretty quickly. But you're still in the same company. And also, these guys are very open to have a chat, to talk, to give you tips. I remember one open meeting, I had one of the British sailing team guys literally sail up alongside, swap boats, did a complete setup change on mine, and in the next race I was in the top 10. It was like, wow, And it's because there's so much in that that's about balance and setup. Getting the leach tension right, so you've got the balance and the balance of power, and it makes a colossal difference to the boat speed, the relative boat speed.
I think that, and I don't want to call it yet, but I think it may be a quite universal thing, especially at this masters level, where you have champions right next to you or me, who are casual sailors, who are so open and friendly and willing to share with you what they know.
Oh, totally.
I have been to a couple of regattas because of this channel, right? And I have seen this guy, Ernesto, a local snipe champion, constantly sharing with folks as he's rigging his boat up. There was one regatta we filmed in Annapolis late last year, and he was telling, I remember overhearing telling this lady, "Hey, listen, I have an extra jib if you want it, I'll give it to you." Like just so open and such camaraderie, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously, it's better for him, right? Because then the competition gets a little tougher, right? But we all benefit, right?
Oh, totally. There's quite a funny story about that. So when one year when my brother and I were sailing our 420, I remember we got to a National Youth Squad training weekend, and it was in January. It was really, really cold. It was in a reservoir near in Surrey somewhere. Anyway, we turned up, got the boat on the water, got across the start line, and the first jibe up broke the mast. And our only mast, it was our only boat, it was only boat. Anyway, there was one of the top 420 sailors, a lady called Tracy Edwards, who became quite a famous yachtswoman, and she's really celebrated now. Anyway, we went to shore. She called over and said, "There's a whole bunch of spare masts in my trailer. Go and grab one. Get yourself sorted." We got back on the water and did a whole weekend's racing. It was amazing. And then about 2010, I was walking through South Kensington in London, going to a restaurant with my wife actually, and there was a bookshop, and Tracy Edwards was stood in the bookshop having just talked about a book that she'd written about something, and I walked past and Debbie said to me, "Do you know who that is?" And I went, "Do you know what? I have to go and say thank you to her." After years, and I said, "What?" We walked in. They finished their sort of book launch evening, and I just walked up and said, "Tracy, it's really nice to see you. I don't know if you remember, but about 30 years ago, you gave us a mast," and it was just like, yeah, well, of course, that's what you do, And I think it's very typical of a sort of sailing type thing.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah.
So, Simon, what do you do? Do you prepare physically for sailing?
Yeah.
What do you do?
So, and in terms of the fin, so when I started with it, I'm conscious that I was quite light. So I was doing a lot of work, a lot of rowing, a lot of weights in the gym to start to build up a bit of strength. And that started to make quite a big difference in terms of some quite intensive competition. I mean, some of the, for example, if you're going out, that's on a reservoir in Suffolk, that picture. But sailing, for example, at Hayling Island, it takes about an hour plus to get out to the course area. Right. You'll do 2 to 3 back-to-back races, an hour sailing back. It's a grueling, long day of sailing. You do that 3 or 4 days in a row, and you certainly know all about it. So doing a lot of rowing, doing a lot of weights, and then it's just sailing as much as I can. The great thing about our club here is that we race on Sundays, but also during the summer on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then there's open sailing. You can go out and practice on Friday as well. It isn't somewhere where because it's a shingle beach, there's no marina, so you can't go and launch the boat yourself. So you need other people around and so forth. But that's taken at the Nationals at Hayling Island in 2019. That picture. It was a fantastic event, and that was the difference. The Nationals in 2018, I think I was 40th out of about 60 something, and in that one I was 24th, I think.
That's quite a leap.
Quite a leap up, and it was literally physical strength and time. And what you realise, it's time in the boat that's the biggest thing that makes the biggest difference. to have time sailing, to getting more used to it, to getting more in control, to be more in control in more varied wind strengths is the key. And even at my weight, the Finn is an amazing controllable boat in very considerably high winds. The first big Masters event that I did was the World Masters at Lake Garda. We drove out to Italy and had a week there, and it was pretty much 20 to 25 knots every single day.
Wow.
And that was seriously hard work. This is just off. This is taken just off the beach here at our local sailing club.
Great pictures.
Yeah, it's great. It's an open stretch of sea, very strong tide, so it makes for very tactical racing. I'm the only thin sailor there. Obviously, not as been said more than once, the only person crazy enough to think they could sail a Finn off a shingle beach. But it's great. And one modification, my boat didn't come with, because you can imagine a Finn is a great big open cockpit boat. So mine originally didn't have carbon drainage tubes for the hull. But the local boat builder, who's done a few jobs for me, actually put them in. And the main reason being that the shingle beach, after a windy day, can be like that steep. And the boat has to sit on a sledge that gets pulled up by a winch.
Right.
You have to get it onto the sledge. And as you can imagine, if you're going up an angle like that, there's any kind of sea running, a couple of waves, and the Finn suddenly doubles in weight with the amount of water inside.
Right.
And it takes about 16 people to get it onto the sledge.
Sure.
Very unpopular. So a couple of drainage holes in the back can make a big difference. Other than that, it's a fantastic place to sail. The club is a great community. It's a training centre as well as a place of really good racing. And they've done. The Commodore has done an amazing job this last year of keeping things going. In as far as they're able to. We actually had our first race of this year last Sunday.
Nice.
And that was it was just amazing to be back out on the water. Seeing people I haven't seen for a few months and to get back into it. And obviously, this year's World Masters have been cancelled because of COVID in Holland. But it looks like there'll be some events in the UK. So hopefully, all being well, we'll be back to doing some decent racing.
That's same on our side here in the US. We're starting to see some of the sailing clubs announcing regattas for the season.
Yeah.
Starting in May, June. So that's all good news. That's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. We also do at our club. There's a local Kent Schools. There's a Kent Schools regatta in April. It's a one-day training. And one of the things that was interesting is the first year that we moved to Deal, they had the National Schools Championship at the sailing club here. And so there's like 450 competitors, kids from all over the country.
That's quite a group.
That was phenomenal.
Quite a community.
From optimists to 29ers.
Wow.
And there's one of the lads who I actually knew from fin sailing, Cameron, who basically said, I don't know why I'm in Malaysia. Look, there's a fin on the beach. I should have brought my fin instead. But so some really good sailors. And that was, it's again amazing. It shows you what an amazing sport sailing can be, bringing so many people together, having such a great social as well as a competitive atmosphere.
Earlier on the Spanish sister channel that we have, we had a chance to interview this guy, Gonzalo, who has been sailing snipes since he was 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
He retired at 92. He stopped sailing at 92.
Yeah.
Competing. He was competing. He was not casually sailing back and forth. He was competing. Yeah. We keep talking about this in many interviews, how we didn't know probably when we were younger, but this sport has such a life expectancy, right? That you can go from the optimist to sailing, a fin or a snipe way into your late years, right?
Absolutely. I think, when like I say, that first World Masters that I did in Lake Garda, there was an Italian sailor. So I'm so it goes from Masters age 40 to 50, Grandmasters 50 to 60, great grandmasters 60 to 70, and legends 70 plus, and then super legends. And there was an Italian sailor, super legend, a guy in his 80s, raced every single race every day.
Really?
And you think, I beat me hands down, I think.
That's amazing.
You know,
He was racing a Finn?
yeah, in 5 knots of breeze, you know.
Wow.
And you know, sort of tough as old boots. But you know, there are quite a lot of guys in their 70s sailing.
Sure. I mean, it's a physical sport, right?
Yeah.
It's a physical sport. You know, you can take it easy if it's not too windy, but it's still a physical sport.
Hmm.
So, Simon, this is an obvious question to most of us, but what specifically about sailing keeps you, or got you coming back?
Well, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, actually. I mean, I just think it's the most extraordinary, you know, it's the most extraordinary sport. It's got so many dimensions to it. So, you know, in a piece of tidal in club racing, when you're racing in a strong tide, you've got the competitiveness with the wind, the elements, the water, the other boats. You've got all of these things. And then you've got your own competitiveness with yourself. You've got the sense of whether you're set up the way that's most efficient. And you're constantly looking ahead. And I just love that sense of being completely in the moment of what you're doing. And just, you know, and it's just extraordinary. And yeah, and it's that is the thing about it. It's that, you know, the sea, the waves, the tide, the wind, tactics, the thinking ahead, you know, is the bit that's the most exciting, I think, constantly. And it's, you know, no 2 moments the same. And you always, if you're not in the moment, you're miles behind.
I had a moment similar to yours earlier with the coming back to sailing. When I went to record that interview in Annapolis last year,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't been around boats for a long time, and the smell of the wet sails, you know, and in the sounds of the flapping sails, it just came back to me like a wave, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm back. I don't have a boat yet, but I'm back.
Yeah.
It was calling me back.
Oh, completely. It's that unique smell when you put a wetsuit on. It's all those little things, and I think it's, you know, it's something that once it is that riding a bicycle type of experience. I think once you've got it, it never really leaves you. And yeah, it was the thing that I did as a child that was really, I think, quite formative. And I think it's an amazing thing for kids to do, because it's character building. It gives you all kinds of social as well as some practical skills.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine the courage, right, of a young child to be on a boat by himself or herself out in the beach or the ocean, right? Although there is coach nearby with, you know, with the boat and whatnot, it still takes quite a bit of courage, and it builds on that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a quite the sport for a young adult or a young kid. It's formative in that way, but also it brings that connection with nature, right?
Sure.
Obviously, this is you and the wind and the waves,
Mm.
and it might make you into an environmentalist, right? Because who wants to see a plastic bag when you're sailing?
No, absolutely. You know, I mean, you want to see the kind of here. You can see seals, you see quite a lot of fish, you see all sorts of, you know, good things. You know, just don't like to see litter and rubbish and all of that.
Exactly.
But
Talking about kids, if you had a chance to meet a 12-year-old boy or girl and they ask you about sailing, what would you say to them?
I'd say just get started in any way, whatever. And you know, to me, the water is something to be engaged with. Get on it, in it, go swimming, go sailing, do whatever, just to be engaged with the water, and you'll never regret it. That would be basically the message, I think, you know. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And what I love about the way a lot of sailing seems to be developing is that a lot of clubs have more club-owned boats, so that it becomes more of a resource that people, you don't have to have an expensive piece of kit in order to go sailing. You can turn up, be a member, you know, borrow some club kit, go sailing, and just engage with it. And I think that's the message, really. and particularly now, particularly in this time, you know, I think we have to all think about the things that we can do that are kind of healthy and forward-looking, and as you said, they're kind of environmentally sound and engaging. And I think there's still those communities that are around sailing clubs that are very mutually supportive, and I think that's a really good thing. It's a really positive message.
Absolutely, I agree with all of that.
Good.
Anything else that we should know about Simon?
Wow, I don't know. I'm looking at what I want to do this year. I mean, the one thing, one of your questions was about who else I would suggest.
Right.
Now, there's a guy that I know only on social media, but it's a Finn sailor who's got into sailing mini 6.5s, which they sail in the mini transat. So it's a 6.5 meter long solo ocean going yacht.
Oh.
That's massively over canvas, and they look like so much fun. That I was looking at it again. Oh, now if business goes well, that looks like a seriously good idea. And there's a guy called James Dagg. He's an airline pilot by day, but he was been a very competitive fin sailor, and has now just taken delivery of his first mini 6.5.
Yeah.
And I think he would be an interesting person to talk to, because I think those boats look absolutely extraordinary. You know, I mean, I love also the fact about them that when these guys, you do the transat in them, you don't have any sat nav. You do it all with paper charts. You're not allowed electronic navigation equipment on the boats. So it's really basic. And that's how I sail, you know, when I sailed on bigger boats anyway, when I was young.
Well, we should definitely connect with this gentleman. And that would be like a very, very interesting sailing experience to hear about.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the boat, but I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, no, I think they're great. I mean, they're obviously quite a big class in France. There are elements of them here, but then, I mean, they're not wildly expensive. I mean, they can be, because they have production boats, and then they have prototypes that are all hand-built, carbon.
Of course.
And they're just over canvas, built for sailing downwind fast a very long way.
Right.
They're really interesting boats and really interesting class. And I think it's the kind of thing you think, that could be an interesting way to go. You know, still be competitive, but do something slightly different. And when I saw that James had one, he sent me a message and went, "This is the new thing."
Well, Simon, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and the images. I hope to have you again in the channel at sometime in the future. Any last words?
No, well, it's great to talk to you, and enjoy sailing. Looking forward to hopefully this season getting back up and running properly.
Sail fast, my friend.
And you. Take care then. Bye-bye.